Olivia Wilson's apartment in the upscale Brookline neighborhood of Boston was bathed in morning light, creating a warm atmosphere. On her desk by the window lay several sketches of logo designs that were nearly complete. Olivia placed her hand on her growing belly as she began putting the finishing touches on her work. "Baby, Mommy's going to work hard today too." 4 years ago, Olivia had left her job as an elementary school art teacher to pursue a new path as a freelance graphic designer. The decision to leave a stable teaching position hadn't been easy, but her passion and talent had attracted clients steadily, and now she received constant requests from local small businesses. The apartment door opened and her husband Jason returned home. Though he looked tired and was loosening his tie after working as a chief architect at a construction company, a gentle smile appeared on his face when he saw Olivia. "How was your day? Is the baby doing well?" Jason knelt beside Olivia and put his ear to her rounded belly. This was their first child. The 7-month pregnancy was progressing smoothly. "The baby's fine. Very active today," Olivia smiled, but her expression quickly clouded. "By the way, Helen called." Jason's face darkened as well. His relationship with his mother Helen had been the greatest challenge in their marriage. "What did she say this time?" "About the baby shower. Lisa is planning it, but Helen said she wants to help." Lisa couldn't refuse. Helen was a respected figure in the local real estate industry. Her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and always immaculate appearance reflected her wealth and influence. If that were all, it might have been manageable, but her unusual attachment to her son Jason and hostility toward Olivia as "the woman who stole my son" had continued since the beginning of their marriage. "Mom means well. It's a good sign that she's becoming more cooperative. Jason was always like this. Defending his mother's behavior, making excuses that it's just her way of showing love." Olivia sighed. "Your mother called the baby crib I chose cheap last week and ordered a different one without asking. It arrived yesterday. I found out when the delivery person called me to confirm." "That's definitely crossing a line," Jason admitted, but quickly changed the subject. "But this is the first grandchild for both mom and dad. It's understandable they're excited." Olivia avoided arguing further. Jason's father Walter was quiet and reserved, unlike his wife. While outwardly gentlemanly and mild-mannered, he was always submissive to Helen and never opposed her words or actions. That evening, while preparing dinner, Olivia received a call from her friend Lisa. "Hey, Olivia, that Helen added 5 of her own friends to the baby shower guest list. Without your permission." "What? How?" "She emailed me directly. Add these names." Like it was an order. Olivia pressed her forehead. This was what she had feared. Helen always pushed boundaries little by little, trying to control everything. It had gotten especially bad since the pregnancy was announced, with Helen offering advice from an experienced mother about Olivia's diet, exercise, and even the clothes she wore. "Lisa, I'm so sorry. But please tell her no more changes will be accepted. This is my baby shower." Late that night, after Jason had fallen asleep, Olivia quietly wept in bed. She worried about her child being born into this situation. Helen's interference would likely grow stronger after the birth. Olivia caressed her belly with her hand and whispered softly, "I'll protect you." One morning, as Olivia was checking her figure in the mirror, Helen paid an unexpected visit. She carried shopping bags from an expensive boutique and said, "A special gift for you," pulling out a dress for after childbirth. "You'll need to get your figure back quickly after giving birth. For Jason's sake." Such comments were commonplace. But as the baby shower approached, Olivia wished for at least that one day to be peaceful. She wanted it to be a special day surrounded by friends, celebrating the baby who was about to be born. If Helen tried to ruin that. Olivia shook her head. "I won't think about it," she told herself. 2 weeks before the baby shower, on a Saturday, Olivia was checking her final shopping list for baby preparations. Sitting on the large sofa in the living room, browsing an online catalog of a baby store on her smartphone, the doorbell suddenly rang. Hearing Helen's voice through the intercom, Olivia's heart nearly stopped. Unannounced visits were Helen's usual tactic. It prevented any chance of refusal. "Olivia, you're going shopping, aren't you? I'll accompany you." When she opened the door, Helen stood there with her perfectly styled hair and expensive branded clothes. The strong scent of her perfume irritated Olivia's sensitive sense of smell, momentarily making her nauseous. "Helen, actually today." "Don't be shy," Helen interrupted, stepping into the living room. "You can't be carrying heavy things by yourself. Besides, as Jason's mother, I have the right to give my opinion on what to buy for my grandchild." Olivia sighed. To avoid conflict, she agreed. "All right. But I've already got most things. Today, I'm mainly looking for small items." "Oh, really?" Helen's voice was tinged with dissatisfaction. "Why didn't you consult me? I have experience, you know. I raised Jason." "I'm sorry," Olivia apologized automatically. This had become a habit in her interactions with Helen. At the baby store, Helen immediately took charge. Looking at the soft pastel blanket Olivia had chosen, she declared, "This rough fabric will damage the baby's delicate skin," and recommended another brand that cost 3 times as much. "But my friend Sarah loves this brand, and her baby has had 0 skin problems," Olivia countered. Helen gave her a cold look. "Oh, right. All your friends are young and inexperienced. My friend Martha is an experienced mother who raised 4 children. She always recommends this brand." In the baby clothes section, Helen visibly frowned when Olivia chose gender-neutral yellow and green outfits. "We still don't know the gender, so I want colors that work for either," Olivia explained. Helen laughed. "You're satisfied with that?" "I knew it was a boy the moment I saw the ultrasound. The jawline looks just like Jason's. Even if it's a girl, those colors wouldn't suit a Wilson family child." Olivia endured in silence. But the last straw came while they were waiting in the checkout line. "Everything you've chosen looks so cheap," Helen said loudly enough for those around them to hear. "Not suitable for my son's child. The Wilson family has always valued quality." Blushing, Olivia quietly completed her purchase. As they left the store, Helen said, "I'm hungry. Let's go to that cafe," but Olivia was exhausted. "I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well." "Oh, really?" Helen put on a disappointed expression, but her eyes remained cold. "I think pregnancy discomforts are a sign of a weak mind. I worked full-time every day when I was pregnant with Jason." When Jason returned from the office later, Olivia tearfully recounted the day's events. "Your mother criticizes everything I do. Everything I choose is cheap or inappropriate." Jason shrugged. "Mom's a perfectionist. That's her way of showing love. She just wants the best for her grandchild." "But Jason," Olivia looked directly into her husband's eyes. "This isn't love. It's control. Your mother is saying I can't do anything right as a mother." Jason looked uncomfortable. "Olivia, Mom can be harsh sometimes, but she means well. She's thinking of us." Realizing further discussion was pointless, Olivia fell silent. That night, the doorbell rang and a delivery person brought several packages. Opening them, she found they were all high-end baby products, the most luxurious brands Olivia had ever seen. A note in Helen's handwriting read, "Since I can't trust your taste." Olivia collapsed and cried. This wasn't mere interference, it was an attempt to completely crush her confidence as a mother. The day before the baby shower, Olivia stopped by her friend Lisa's house. While making coffee, Lisa noticed Olivia's tired expression. What's wrong? You haven't seemed yourself lately. Olivia began pouring out everything: Helen's harassment, Jason's lack of understanding, and her own anxieties and anger. Lisa listened intently and squeezed Olivia's hand. Stop putting up with it. Helen is trying to control you. And Jason is pretending not to see it. Tomorrow, we'll protect you, Lisa said with determination. You don't need to be a quiet victim forever. At the same time, Walter Wilson sat alone in his study at home, staring at a glass of whiskey. He had reached his limit with Helen's behavior. Though attracted to her strong personality when they were young, her controlling nature and perfectionism had only intensified throughout their marriage. Witnessing her harassment of Olivia after their son's marriage, he was ashamed of his silence. I've been quiet for too long. Walter murmured as he tilted his glass. Enough is enough. He opened his desk drawer and checked the divorce papers inside. Using his experience as a lawyer, he had been secretly making preparations. And there was one more thing he had prepared: a small voice recorder. He had been collecting evidence of Helen badmouthing Olivia for several weeks. Tomorrow, everything changes, he resolved. I won't let anyone else get hurt. On the day of the baby shower, Lisa's spacious living room was decorated with soft pastel colors. A banner reading, "Welcome Baby Wilson," hung on the wall, and an arch of balloons adorned the entrance. When Olivia arrived with her husband, Lisa greeted them with a warm smile. You're the star today. Don't worry about anything, just enjoy, Lisa whispered in Olivia's ear, then nodded to Jason. However, upon entering the living room, Olivia's heart sank when she saw Helen already seated with several unfamiliar women. Helen wore an expensive-looking dress, with a pearl necklace gleaming perfectly around her neck. Well, finally you're here, Helen said, glancing at her watch. Your friends are waiting too. Olivia noticed that some of Lisa's decorations had been changed. The tablecloth was no longer the bright yellow Lisa had chosen but the subdued cream color Helen preferred. The flower arrangements had been changed from cheerful sunflowers to sophisticated calla lilies. What happened? Olivia asked Lisa quietly. Lisa replied with a suppressed look of anger. She arrived first and changed what we had prepared, saying she wanted to make it more elegant. I tried to stop her, but... Olivia sighed. It's okay. I don't want to argue today. Friends arrived one after another, and the room gradually became lively. Olivia's colleagues, college friends, and young neighborhood moms all warmly welcomed her, placing their hands on her belly and praying for the baby's health. As conversation and laughter filled the room, Olivia began to relax. Walter sat quietly in a corner of the room. Unlike his usual submissive demeanor, today he seemed filled with determination. After exchanging a few words with Jason, he occasionally stared intently at his wife. When the games ended, Lisa cheerfully announced, "Time to open presents." Everyone's excitement grew. Olivia sat on the central sofa, with Jason taking a seat beside her. One by one, carefully unwrapping the gift paper, Olivia expressed her gratitude for her friend's thoughtfulness. Cute baby clothes, practical diaper bags, handmade blankets, each item reflected love for her and the baby. Meanwhile, Helen continued to offer small critiques of the friends' presents. Cute, but the baby will outgrow it quickly, that material causes allergies, she whispered, causing the expressions of Olivia's friends to cloud each time. When about half the presents had been opened, Helen stood up. Her eyes gleamed with a mischievous light. It's time for my special gift, she announced, pointing to a large box placed in the corner of the room. Two male guests helped bring the box over. As the room fell silent, Helen beamed and said, I prepared this specially. Olivia, open it. Olivia nervously approached the box and slowly untied the ribbon. When she lifted the lid, a metal cage appeared. It was clearly a dog crate. In the stunned silence, Helen laughed loudly. This child, I saw the ultrasound, barking all the time like a dog. Jason told me the doctor said during the checkup, this child is very active. The color drained from Olivia's face. Beside her, Jason wore a confused expression. Mom, this is. But Helen ignored her son's words and continued, everyone, can you imagine? This child, not even born yet, and already unmanageable. Thrashing around in the ultrasound like a badly behaved dog. She approached the cage and opened the door. This suits it perfectly. She picked up Olivia's ultrasound picture from the table and tried to place it inside the cage. Some people in the room, especially Helen's friends, laughed awkwardly. They raised their voices in laughter, saying, Helen, you're so funny. Olivia stood frozen, unable to move. Tears welled in her eyes, and her face turned bright red. The atmosphere in the room became unbearably heavy. Olivia. Lisa had just started to move toward her friend when it happened. That's enough. The shout reverberated, and everyone turned in surprise. It was Walter. Usually quiet and reserved, his face was now flushed red with anger, his fists clenched. Helen, you've gone too far. Put that cage down right now. Helen was momentarily shaken by her husband's anger but quickly composed herself. Well, Walter. It's a joke, just a joke. Everyone's laughing. No one is laughing, Walter's voice trembled. You're always like this. Hurting people and then trying to pass it off as a joke. He walked toward Helen, and as everyone in the room watched with bated breath, he stared directly into his wife's eyes. For 35 years, I've silently watched your tyranny. Your excessive interference with our son, your harassment of Olivia. I can't take it anymore. What are you saying? Helen's voice was strained. I've done everything for our family. No. Walter raised his voice. You've done everything for yourself. You try to destroy anything that doesn't go your way. Our marriage ends today. The venue was enveloped in complete silence. Helen stood with her mouth open, at a loss for words. Jason stood up, looking back and forth between his father and mother. Dad, calmly. I am calm, son, Walter's voice was low but filled with strong determination. I've been consulting with lawyers for 3 months, making preparations. I decided to end everything today, here. Olivia slowly stood up and took her husband's hand. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of humiliation, they were tears of relief that something was finally ending. Everyone, I'm sorry, she said, turning to her gathered friends. For things turning out this way. Lisa quickly came to her side and put an arm around her shoulders. Don't apologize. You've done nothing wrong. Walter approached Olivia and bowed his head apologetically. Olivia, I've been filled with regret. For staying silent, for not protecting you. I promise this is the last time you'll have to endure this. Helen suddenly began laughing hysterically. It was an eerily high-pitched laugh. Impossible. You're leaving me. That's absurd. You're a pathetic man who can't do anything without me. She looked around at the people, seeking support with her eyes from her friends. But even they were now silent, looking down. Jason, Helen approached her son. You understand, don't you? How much I love you. I've sacrificed everything for your life. Jason stared at his mother, complex emotions playing across his face. Memories from childhood, his mother's excessive affection, sometimes suffocating interference, and now, the cruel treatment of his wife. Mom, he said slowly. Please, stop now. In that moment, all color drained from Helen's face. She stared at her son, and for the first time, fear appeared in her eyes. What she feared most, losing her son, was happening right before her. We don't need this cage, Jason said quietly. Our baby needs love and respect. Not what you've been showing. He took Olivia's hand and stood beside his wife. Today, we stop being silent about your behavior. The atmosphere in the room changed completely. The air that had been filled with fear and tension was now filled with hope. Olivia squeezed Jason's hand tightly. In the heavy silence that dominated the room, Walter took a deep breath and turned to face the gathered people. Everyone, I apologize for ruining such a wonderful celebration. His voice was calm, but his eyes held years of suffering. But I can no longer continue in silence. He approached Olivia and took her hand. Olivia, I've wanted to apologize to you for so long. Please forgive my weakness in not stopping Helen's behavior. Olivia nodded, fighting back tears. Walter continued. Helen and my marriage may have looked perfect from the outside. However, for 35 years, I've been a victim of her control and emotional abuse. Helen tried to laugh again, but her laughter was hollow, and no one in the room joined in. Walter, what are you saying? I've always taken care of you, her voice trembled. Taken care? Walter replied calmly. You systematically destroyed my confidence and constantly denied my opinions. If I said I wanted to choose a different path, you'd say, you can't do it. If I tried to socialize with friends, you'd say, your friends aren't up to my level. Lisa quietly signaled to the other guests, and some people began moving to another room. This was a family matter, and not everyone needed to witness it. However, Olivia's close friends and the women Helen had brought remained. Walter took folded papers from his suit pocket. The divorce preparations are already complete. I've consulted with a lawyer. Helen's face turned pale. There's no evidence. I was a perfect wife. Evidence? Walter smiled sadly. Helen, I just want to be free. But if you need evidence. He took out a smartphone from another pocket and tapped the screen. What resonated in the room was clearly Helen's voice. That woman, Olivia, is the worst. Not worthy of Jason. From a poor family, uneducated, doesn't understand our social status. When the baby is born, I'll have to teach her how to raise it. That woman can't possibly raise a child. The recording continued. Walter is useless. No one needs his opinion. Jason is my son. I raised him. No one can take him away from me. The room fell silent again. Jason, his face pale with shock, stared at his mother. Mom, is this true? His voice trembled. Helen suddenly became defensive. I was thinking of you. I just wanted to protect our perfect family. Protect? Anger flashed in Jason's eyes. Mom, you were destroying it. Harassing Olivia, insulting Dad, you call this love? Olivia put her hand on Jason's shoulder. Her eyes showed sympathy. She understood how much he was hurting. The mother he had idealized had suddenly crumbled away. I'm ashamed I've been doubting my wife's words all this time. Jason held his head. Everything Olivia said was true. And yet You're her son, Olivia said gently. It's natural you didn't want to believe it. Walter approached his son and put his arm around his shoulders. I was the same. I kept turning away from the truth. But you gave me courage. Me? Jason looked at his father with a confused expression. Yes. Seeing you choose Olivia and begin to build your own family made me realize I needed to change too, Walter smiled. You're braver than I am. During this dialogue, Helen had gradually retreated to a corner of the room. She bit her lip, looking like she wanted to say something, but seemed unable to find the words. She felt the perfect image she had built up over the years crumbling in an instant. Jason, she directed her last hope toward her son. You're my son. I brought you into this world. Everything you are is because of me. No, Mom, Jason answered slowly. I've lived my own life. And now I'm creating a new family. I won't be at your beck and call anymore. He took Olivia's hand and looked deep into her eyes. You and the baby are my family. From now on, I'll protect you both. I promise. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. For the first time since they got married, her husband was completely on her side. Jason gently placed his hand on his wife's belly and said quietly but firmly, Mom, unless you respect Olivia, I won't let you see our child. Helen looked around as if seeking help from her friends, but they too remained silent. For years, they had admired Helen's perfect life and accepted her words without question, but today they had witnessed a glimpse of the truth for the first time. I was perfect. Helen said in a trembling voice. I made everything perfect. A perfect appearance and perfect love are different things, Walter said quietly. Let's go home now, Helen. That's enough for today. He approached his wife and quietly guided her to the door. Helen didn't resist, following as if all her strength had drained away. Before leaving the room, she looked back once at Olivia and Jason. What showed in her eyes wasn't anger or sadness, but fear for the first time, the fear of losing what she valued most. As the door closed, those left in the room finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lisa stepped forward and said in a bright voice, Now, let's continue celebrating this wonderful baby. There are still many presents left. At those words, everyone regained their smiles, and conversations gradually resumed. Olivia looked at Jason and felt a sense of security in its true meaning for the first time. Emma, come to Mommy. In the gentle spring sunshine streaming through the window in Boston, Olivia opened her arms to welcome her toddling daughter. 10-month-old Emma Wilson moved toward her mother with unsteady steps, wearing a bright smile. 3 months after the baby shower, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Jason took his company's first-ever paternity leave, and together they shared the joys and challenges of raising a child. Their small apartment was filled with a baby's laughter and toys, wrapped in unprecedented happiness. On a Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang for a visitor. Walter came in smiling, showing Emma a small wooden chair he was holding. I made this by hand for my first grandchild, he said proudly. I always wanted to be a furniture maker when I was younger. While proceeding with his divorce, Walter had begun walking a new path in life. He had rented an apartment and started woodworking as a hobby, something he had dreamed of since his youth. His face showed vitality and joy that hadn't been seen for many years. Dad, this is wonderful, Jason admired his father's work. I had no idea you had such talent. I didn't know myself, Walter laughed quietly. For the first time in my life, I feel free. Olivia had built a surprisingly close relationship with Walter. He visited at least twice a week, cherishing his time with his granddaughter, and sometimes offering advice on Olivia's design work. He often said, I wish I had found courage earlier, to which Olivia would reply, the timing was perfect. One sunny day, a letter arrived in the mailbox. It was from Helen. Olivia held the letter, contemplating for a long time before finally opening it. To Olivia, Jason, and Emma. I am now attending therapy. I've begun to understand my actions and the pain I've caused you all. I've realized that my controlling behavior came from deep anxiety and fear. The fear that I wouldn't be loved unless I was perfect drove me. I may not deserve forgiveness, but I sincerely apologize. I hope someday I can meet my granddaughter. Helen. That evening, after putting Emma to bed, Olivia and Jason sat facing each other at the kitchen table, discussing the letter. What do you think? Jason asked cautiously. Honestly, I have mixed feelings, Olivia answered. But if she's trying to change. After a long discussion, they reached the conclusion that we should work on repairing the relationship over time. They decided to start with brief visits, watching Helen's changes. The next morning, Olivia stood by the window, holding the sleeping Emma while gazing at the sunrise. "We all make mistakes," she whispered softly. "But what's important is having the courage to acknowledge them and try to change." She hugged her baby close and felt the warm morning light filling the room. The future was uncertain, but they had taken a step toward building a healthy family relationship. Outside the window, a new day was about to begin.